You know, I never thought that I would be 48 and still single, you know? And loneliness is a real thing. And it can really suck, you know? And I just sometimes sit and think, like, was it something I did wrong? Am I being punished in some way? You know, is there a lesson that I didn't get or I need to be taught? I was talking to somebody the other day, and the subject of being single came up, and they're like, well, you always look so mean looking. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's my personality in a way. But even when I've tried to not be that way, what difference has it made, you know? And some people might say, well, what the heck is the big deal? Who's not single? But I've been single for 25 years. Like, not even on a date. It's like I've been invisible for 25 years. Even though I've been around, you know, people. I've been around men. All of my friends are married except for one. And it's almost comical in a way, except that it's the reality. And I sit and I'm like, am I just, this is the way it's gonna be? And I've had to kind of come to, I don't want to say terms, but it could be really hard to deal with, especially when parenting. You know, I became a single mom by choice. I was literally minding my own business one day and I got a phone call, and how could I say no? How could I say no? That's incredibly selfish in a way, especially when you have the ability to, and the only reason is because, oh, I'm not married, or, oh, I'm gonna lose my freedom. I didn't even think of those things. I didn't even think at all, if I'm honest. And maybe because I did, if I did, I would have talked myself out of it. But, and I think in addition to just dealing with that feeling and sense of being alone, is just getting older. And you know, let's be honest, as you get older, your body change, your everything change. Your hair, your skin starts to sag. Some of us gain all this weight because we go in menopause and our body is like completely out of whack. Yes, I am driving, but I'm in heavy traffic, so it's all good. But, you know, I just sit and think, like, is this it? You know, I'm just gonna be alone the rest of my life. But then I kind of like had to stop, you know, because once you start going down that pathway, and I apologize that it's a little dark, but once you start going down that wormhole of I'm so alone, even though it's true. I mean, I'm not alone, but I'm just saying in general, if you go down that pathway of I'm so alone, that this is my life, that nobody wants me. Because I used to think that in my early years when I was in my 20s, and it was like everybody was getting married like like water. In my 20s and 30s, my late 20s to my early 30s to mid 30s, it was like every time I turned around, someone was getting married, and I was like, well, what is going on with me? And now that I'm older, and you know, there's a lot of life experiences and things like that, and you keep thinking, okay, it's gonna happen when I'm 35, okay, it's gonna happen when I'm 40, okay, it's gonna happen when I'm 45. Now I'm 48, and I realized that this could be the reality, you know. And so in the midst of my self-pity and feeling like it's the end of the world, which is not, at least not yet, I had to stop and get a heart check, because I said, you know what, God, you are good. You're good, God. Being married is not the defining aspect of my life. The defining aspect of my life was giving my heart to Jesus and experiencing change. That's the defining aspect of my life. And if I never get married, so be it. God's done so much for me that how can I just hold him hostage because I don't have a spouse? And people say all kinds of things. Oh, it's man shouldn't be alone. But what if that's God's plan? Who are we to tell God what his plan is, you know? And does that mean I don't struggle with loneliness? Yes. I have periods where I wake up and I'm like, man, I am doing this by myself. How do I make all these decisions? What is the right decision? Especially when you're dealing with just such difficult things like sickness and finances and, you know, all these things with your kids. And you want to make the right choices and decisions, and you feel so alone. And then I stop and I started thinking of Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes towards the hill, from whence comes my help. And my help comes from God. It's not going to be in a person, because you know what? They're human just like me. And yes, we all have a desire, and those desires are real. But so is God's desire. His desire for us and our lives. And I've had to lay down my feelings. I've had to lay down my desires when I realize who God was. Because God is good. And just because you don't have what you think you should have doesn't negate who he is. Because if I really sit and ponder like I've had to ask God, you know what? You've had so much grace and mercy upon my life. I could be dead. I got diagnosed with a rare form of cancer 4 years ago. So I said all of that to say that in the midst of all of what you're dealing with, or if you're in this place where you're really feeling sorry for yourself, just, you know, questioning God in terms of why things didn't work out the way that you thought it would, that really take stock of your life and what God is doing. There's so much of life that's missed when we're just focused on what we don't have, what didn't work out, what we're missing. A lot of times, what we think we're missing, we're not actually missing it. It's God's in control, and He knows the whys and how things should be and what would have happened if you did this, and He has a perfect plan. And all too often we live life just focused on what we don't have, and we miss God's plan. And what I have found through the years is that God has to be your single hope, and He will work His purpose and His plan in your life.